So here's one that interests me today. Ford CEO breaks silence on plan to completely abandon gas cars for EVs after company forced to pull back production. U.S. Sun, we see Jim Farley here with a big grin and smile on his face. Changing course, Ford CEO breaks silence on plan to completely abandon gas cars for EVs after company forced to pull back production. It says that slow demand on EVs results in a cut to the Lightning production plant. And the article begins with this statement here. Ford's CEO has confirmed that gas-powered engines aren't off the table and will refine hybridized platforms amid workforce cuts. The employees being cut will not lose their jobs, but instead be redirected to other projects. We can see here some of the images that are shared here of this F-150 Lightning EV pickup truck. The CEO of Ford, Jim Farley here, standing there at the podium. And the announcement comes after a year Ford mass hired workers to produce the Ford F-150 Lightning in Dearborn, Michigan. A third of the Ford F-150 Lightning's workforce, a total of 2,100 employees, will see a third of a reduction as a result of slower than expected demand for the second best-selling EV pickup. A spokesperson for Ford said that if workers wish to part ways with the company instead of being directed or redirected, they will be offered a $50,000 retirement package. The union president of Louisville, Kentucky's production plant, Todd Dunn, said his eyes are now on the battery production workforce. Batteries are a hot topic in the industry, with engineers looking to find ways to increase range and charging times without adding too much weight. A bigger battery means more materials are needed, which increases cost. And the battery, and I quote, "The battery technology right now is kind of slowing some of the purchasing down," is what Dunn said. And he also added that the REV Center, the Rogue Electric Vehicle Center, we call it REV-C, was ramping up their second crew, and they're now going to lay off the second crew and not put the third crew on. With an ever-changing industry, the battery production workforce behind it sees rapid changes too. Quote, "They intended to build 180,000 plus units. And right now, we're looking at 55,000 units that they're going to build. There are some things out there that's causing this distance on battery charges and new technology that's being brought about overseas, and that technology being implemented over there already in certain design models." He says that it's also showing almost double in mileage, if not a significant increase. So some of those things are changing, in quote. Now, the automaker's chief financial officer, the CFO, Jeff Lawler, said that the priority is adjusting to market demands. With demand being slower than expected across the EV industry, the company must focus on customer buying trends, which, to the company's dismay, after investing billions into EV research and development, stays on gas-powered and hybridized vehicles. Their Ford F-150 and Maverick hybrid variants were both strong sellers as opposed to the all-electric F-150 Lightning. Quote, Lawler said, "We definitely need to work to match capacity with demand. We are right-sizing our capacity and the investments that we're putting into EVs, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I think we're in the transition between the early adopters who were much more willing to deal with some of the ancillary items that come with EVs, charging range and things like that. And with range anxiety being actively worked on in Ford's future plans, there's another issue that Lawler recognized as part of a buyer's hesitance. And he says, we're moving into the early majority, and the early majority is much less forgiving, and pricing is an issue. However, current batteries in EVs contribute to the hefty curb weight. EVs are substantially heavier than their gas-powered counterparts, and since the range is entirely wrapped around a battery, automakers like Ford are scrambling to keep production costs down. Quote, the bigger the vehicle, the bigger the battery, and the battery is the most expensive thing in the vehicle, he said. And then the bigger the battery, the more weight, the more battery you need, the less efficient the vehicle is, so the costs just spiral out of control. Despite the global push for EVs to become the new standard to replace gasoline-powered cars, Ford CEO Jim Farley said it's important to not put the cart before the horse. However, that means that gas-powered engines won't be axed from production, and no solid plans to eradicate them have been made. Whew. Quote, Farley says, we are taking advantage of our manufacturing flexibility to offer customer choices while balancing our growth and profitability. And we see a bright future for electric vehicles for specific customers and consumers, especially with our upcoming digitally advanced EVs and access to Tesla's charging network. Now, I find it pretty interesting that this article didn't include anything about the Ford Mustang Mach-E. They talked about the Ford F-150 Lightning, they talked about Rivian R1T, they talked about hybrid variants of other Ford products, the F-150, the Maverick, but they didn't mention the Mach-E. And this is from Electric, and this is from April 1st, and I don't think it's an April Fool's joke. It says that Ford Mustang Mach-E price cuts are proving affordable EVs are in demand. But I guess that just kind of goes along with what Ford's CFO and Ford's CEO were discussing as far as keeping costs down. And if you keep the costs down, then you can make EVs affordable, which could potentially increase their demand, especially if you're increasing range and the charging network capabilities and infrastructure and reducing or quite possibly maybe even eliminating range anxiety. It says that Ford is moving inventory after slashing prices by up to $8,100 on its best-selling electric SUV, the Mustang Mach-E, last month. And good news, Ford Mustang Mach-E price cuts are working. So maybe this is some form of framework that Ford can use as a template to get the F-150 Lightning along the same path. We'll see.